She stood alone until someone chose to see her. Not to save her, but to stand beside her. Stay with us. What starts as heartbreak often ends in power, because every voice they tried to silence deserves to be heard. Where in the world are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments. Have you ever rewritten your own story? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Black Stories Untold with Love, and ring that notification bell for more heartwarming stories that celebrate strength. The crowd rises before the ball even leaves his hands. 40,000 people inhale at once, already believing in the ending because they believe in him. Taylor moves through the noise like it was built for him, long strides polished by years of expectation, shoulders squared beneath the weight of a city that has decided he belongs to them. The lights find him easily. They always do. His face fills the screens, suspended above the court, the smile practiced but not fake, the kind that sells jerseys and hope in equal measure. When the buzzer sounds and the final shot falls clean through the net, the arena explodes. His teammates rush him. Reporters lean forward. Children scream his name until their voices crack. Dash lifts his hands, acknowledging the roar the way he has 100 times before. This is the moment he was built for, the moment everyone sees. But even as the applause crashes over him, something inside Dash remains strangely still. He has learned how to move through this life without friction, every step measured, every word filtered. He knows when to laugh, when to bow his head, when to thank God, and when to thank the fans. His schedule is printed weeks in advance. His meals are planned. His image is protected. Nothing is accidental. Nothing is allowed to be. The court gleams beneath his shoes, freshly polished, reflecting the banners that hang like promises from the rafters. MVP, champion, franchise cornerstone. Each one tells the same story. A man who has won everything worth winning. And yet, as the noise begins to soften into a steady roar, Dash lifts his gaze beyond the court, past the luxury boxes and the familiar faces leaning forward with entitlement in their eyes. He does not know why he looks there. It is instinct, not intention. High above the floor, where the lights fade and the seats narrow, someone is laughing. Not the loud kind meant to be seen. A real laugh, unguarded, rising from deep in the chest. Dash sees her just as she leans toward a small boy beside her, her hand brushing his shoulder, her smile wide and tired and alive. The child is pointing wildly at the court, his face lit with wonder. She listens like nothing else exists. She is not dressed for cameras. No designer jacket. No carefully styled hair, just warmth, presence, a beauty that does not perform. Hailey Miller sits in the cheap seats because that is where life has placed her, and she has learned how to make room for joy anyway. Dash feels it then. The strange pull of attention that has nothing to do with a desire and everything to do with recognition. He cannot hear her voice. Cannot see her clearly, but he feels the gravity of her stillness in a room built on spectacle. While everyone else is watching him, she is watching her son. For a moment, the world narrows. The court fades. The applause dulls. Dash's breath catches, not with pride, but with something unfamiliar and sharp. She looks down at the court then, not at him exactly, but close enough that their eyes almost meet. Almost. The moment passes before it can become anything more. The crowd surges again. His name is shouted. His teammates call him back into the circle of celebration. Dash turns away because that is what he knows how to do, but the image stays with him. The quiet dignity of a woman who did not need to be seen to matter. The way she carried exhaustion and grace in the same breath. The way she belonged entirely to herself and to the small hand resting against her side. Later, when the locker room empties and the echoes finally die, Dash will realize something unsettling. For the first time in years, the loudest moment of his night did not come from the crowd. It came from the cheap seats. Hailey Miller learned long ago how to make herself small in places that were not built for her. Not out of shame, but out of instinct. Survival had taught her when to blend into the background and when to stand her ground. Tonight was not about standing out. Tonight was about her son and the way his eyes lit up when the players ran onto the court like heroes, stepping into a story he believed in with his whole heart. She counted her blessings in quiet ways. The ticket she'd saved for. The babysitter who showed up on time. The extra shift she picked up so her son could see the game he had talked about for months. The cheap seats were steep and narrow, but they were enough. They always had to be. Hailey sat with her back straight and her coat folded neatly on her lap, the noise of the arena rolling around her like a tide she had learned how to swim in without drowning. She knew how these spaces worked, who they were designed for. She did not expect to be welcomed by them. She expected to endure them. Her son leaned forward so far she kept a steadying hand on his shoulder. His small voice rose and fell with the crowd, calling out names he knew by heart. When Dash Taylor stepped onto the court, the arena shifted. The air tightened. Hailey felt it too, the collective pull of attention. She watched the way her son reacted, the reverence, the belief. That mattered more to her than the man himself. Still, she looked. Not because he was famous, because something about him felt familiar in a way she could not explain. The weight in his shoulders, the way he smiled like he had practiced it too many times, the way he seemed surrounded and alone at the same time. When his eyes lifted into the stands, she did not expect him to look that high. People like him were used to being looked at, not looking. And yet there it was, a brief alignment, a glance that landed heavier than it should have. It was not desire, it was recognition. Hailey felt it immediately and did not like it. The sudden awareness, the quiet jolt of being seen in a place she had chosen invisibility. She held his gaze for a fraction of a second, long enough to remind herself that she existed. Then, she looked away. She would not be pulled into a story that was not hers. Her world was smaller and sharper. It was built around early mornings and packed lunches, around the ache in her feet at the end of the day and the pride she carried in the way her son trusted her completely. She did not have room for fantasy. Fantasy did not pay rent or show up when you were exhausted and still had to be strong. She had learned what attention from powerful men could cost, how curiosity could turn into entitlement, how admiration could carry assumptions that flattened you into something easier to consume. She did not need to be chosen. She had chosen herself a long time ago. When the crowd erupted and her son jumped to his feet, Hailey smiled and stood with him, clapping not for the man on the court, but for the joy radiating from the boy beside her. She shouted his name, not Dash's. She laughed when he spilled soda on her sleeve. She wiped his hands with the edge of her scarf like it was the most important job in the world. Down on the court, Dash Taylor lifted his hands to the crowd. Up in the cheap seats, Hailey Miller held her son close and felt the echo of that glance linger like an unanswered question. Two lives brushed against each other in a room built to celebrate one of them. Only one of them would leave changed, and she did not yet know how much it would cost her to be seen. The ride home is quiet in a way the arena never allows. Dash Taylor sits in the back seat of his car as the city slides past the tinted windows, lights blurring into streaks that mean nothing once the noise is gone. The driver says nothing. The phone buzzes with messages he does not read. Congratulations, MVP, legend. Tonight you were unstoppable. He lets them stack up unanswered. The house greets him with stillness. A long hallway, art chosen by someone else. Furniture arranged to impress people who rarely sit on it. The air smells faintly of lemon cleaner and something expensive that never quite feels like comfort. Dash drops his keys into the bowl by the door and listens to the sound echo longer than it should. Applause does not follow you home. It never has. He moves through the space slowly, shedding pieces of the night like armor, jacket over a chair, shoes lined up too neatly. The television clicks on out of habit, then off again. The silence presses in. This is the part no one sees. The part after the celebration, when the body still hums with adrenaline and the soul feels strangely untouched. Dash sinks onto the edge of the couch and rubs his hands together, still feeling the phantom vibration of the crowd. He closes his eyes and tries to hold onto the feeling of being adored. It slips through him like smoke. Instead, another image takes its place. Hailey Miller, high in the stands, laughing with her son like the world was not watching, like nothing else existed beyond that moment. The way her shoulders softened when she leaned toward him, the way her attention stayed rooted in something real. Dash has been surrounded his entire adult life. Coaches, agents, teammates, fans, women who smile because they recognize his face, people who want something from him. Praise clings to him like a second skin, but none of it reaches where he actually lives. He thinks about how she did not look at him like a prize. He thinks about how she looked away first. The thought unsettles him more than criticism ever could. He walks into the kitchen and pours a glass of water, staring at his reflection in the dark window. The MVP stares back, broad shoulders, familiar face, a man everyone thinks they know. Dash barely recognizes him. When was the last time someone chose him without knowing his name? Not the brand, not the contract, not the highlights replayed on screens across the country. Just him. He remembers being younger, before the cameras, before the pressure, when basketball was something he loved instead of something that owned him, when he could sit on the floor and laugh without worrying about how it looked. That version of himself feels far away now, buried beneath years of expectation and performance. Hailey Miller does not know any of that. She does not know his stats or his endorsements or the carefully managed narrative that surrounds him. She saw him for less than a second and then turned back to her son, and somehow that feels like the truest thing that happened all night. Dash moves through the house and ends up in his bedroom, standing in the doorway like a visitor. The bed is untouched. Perfect. Lonely. He sits down and leans forward, elbows on his knees, head bowed. For the first time since the final buzzer, his chest tightens with something close to grief. He has won so much. And yet, what would it feel like to be chosen for the man who comes home to silence? The man who misses being seen without being celebrated. The man who wants to matter in a room without having to earn it with points on a scoreboard. Outside, the city hums with life. Somewhere, Hailey Miller is probably tucking her son into bed, his voice still buzzing with excitement, his faith in heroes intact. She will wake up tomorrow and carry on. Work, responsibility, love that does not come with applause. Dash lies back on the bed and stares at the ceiling, the echo of the crowd finally gone. For the first time in years, the MVP does not feel victorious. He feels awake. The community gym smells like floor polish and popcorn. Folding chairs line the walls. Handwritten signs point toward the bake sale and the raffle table. The noise here is different from an arena, softer, messier, real. Dash Taylor steps inside without security, without cameras, wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low. For the first time in years, no one parts to let him through. He does not belong here, and he knows it. Children run past him laughing. A basketball thumps against the far wall. Parents cluster in small circles talking about schedules and money and things that actually matter. Dash feels stripped of armor he did not realize he was wearing. There is no spotlight to stand in, no script to follow. And then he sees her, Hailey Miller stands near a long table covered in paper plates and cookies arranged with care. Her hair is pulled back, her sleeves are rolled up. She is counting change with practiced focus while keeping one eye on her son shooting baskets with other kids. She looks tired and grounded and entirely herself. Dash stops walking. This time there is no distance of thousands of seats between them, no roar to soften the moment. Just space and choice. Hailey notices him almost immediately. Her gaze sharpens for a breath, then settles. No surprise, no smile meant to impress. She watches him like she watches everything else in her life. Assessing. Deciding. He steps closer, unsure of how to enter a world that was not made for him. When he speaks, his voice feels too loud. I did not expect to see you here. She looks at him fully now, eyes steady, expression unreadable. This is my son's school. People usually come for a reason. The words land clean, not rude, not warm, honest. Dash nods, embarrassed. I donated to the fundraiser. She glances at the table, then back at him. That explains the oversized check. But you did not have to show up. I wanted to. Why? The question is not accusatory. It is curious in the way people get when they are tired of being handled gently. Dash hesitates. He searches for the answer that sounds right and finds it missing. Because I wanted to be somewhere real. Hailey considers him for a moment, then returns to her counting. Real does not usually look like this to people like you, people like me. She looks up again, not unkind. Famous men who can leave whenever it gets uncomfortable. Dash swallows. He has stood in front of hostile crowds. He has been booed, doubted, criticized. None of that feels like this. This feels like being seen too clearly. I am not here to perform, he says quietly. Good, she replies. Because I do not clap for performances. Her son runs over, breathless, face glowing. Mom, did you see that shot? She beams instantly, pride effortless, hand on his back grounding him. I saw it. You are getting better every week. The boy grins at Dash. Do you play? Dash almost laughs. A sound escapes him before he can stop it. A little. Hailey watches the exchange closely. Then she straightens. You can help clean up if you want to stay. No cameras, no praise. Just work. Dash nods. He grabs a stack of chairs and follows her lead without comment. His hands smell like metal and sugar. No one asks him for autographs. No one cares who he is. And somehow, that feels like relief. As they work side by side, Hailey speaks without ceremony. I saw you at the game. You looked lonely up there. Dash freezes for half a second, then continues stacking chairs. Most people do not say that to me. Most people are afraid to say what they see. He meets her eyes then. There is no awe in them, only truth, and that honesty unsettles him more than any hostile crowd ever could. Because for the first time in a long time, Dash Taylor is not being cheered. He is being understood. The world notices before Dash is ready for it to matter. It starts small, a photo snapped from across a street, a blurry image of him walking beside Hailey outside the community gym, her son between them, laughing, swinging his backpack like a pendulum. By morning, the image is sharper, cropped, labeled, speculated over. The story begins to write itself without asking permission. Fans ask questions that pretend to be curiosity. Commentators couch judgment in concern. Sponsors call his agent with gentle voices and sharpened implications. They talk about image alignment and brand coherence and protecting what he has built. They do not say her name. They say things like unexpected choice and complicated optics. Dash feels the pressure settle in his chest like something heavy and familiar. This is the cost of visibility. This is how love gets audited. Hailey feels it too, though she has lived with this kind of scrutiny her whole life. She has learned how to brace herself against glances that linger too long, how to read rooms that were never designed with her in mind. She knows the sound of a door closing quietly behind opportunity. She knows what it means to be discussed instead of known. She does not pretend this will be easy. They sit on opposite sides of a small kitchen table one evening while her son sleeps down the hall. The room is modest, warm, honest. A stack of bills sits beside a bowl of apples. Dash looks out of place and deeply present at the same time. People are going to have opinions, she says, not looking at him. Loud ones. I know, he answers. No, she says gently. You do not. Not like this. They will question your judgment. They will ask why you would choose me when you could have anyone. The words land carefully, not bitter, not defensive. True. Dash meets her gaze. I am choosing you. She exhales slowly. That is what scares me. She tells him what loving her will cost: privacy, approval, comfort, the illusion that the world is fair if you play by its rules. She tells him that her son will feel every ripple of this attention, that she will not allow him to be collateral damage in someone else's awakening. I will not be a lesson, she says quietly, and I will not be a phase. Dash listens, really listens. No rebuttal, no promises wrapped in performance. He hears the strength it took for her to survive without bitterness, the exhaustion beneath her calm, the line she has drawn to protect the life she has built. I will not hide you, he says, and I will not ask you to shrink so I can stay comfortable. She studies him like someone who has learned to look for cracks. Comfort is expensive, Dash. It costs other people too often. Outside, the noise grows louder. Analysts debate his focus. Fans argue ownership over his choices. Someone calls her a distraction. Someone else calls her brave. None of them know her. Dash feels the familiar pull of the crowd, the safety of being liked, the ease of stepping back into the version of himself everyone understands. He could end this quietly. Call it timing. Call it pressure. Call it respect. Instead, he sits there in her kitchen and realizes something simple and terrifying. For the first time, the crowd's approval feels optional. Hailey reaches across the table and rests her hand over his, not claiming, not pleading, grounding. If you stay, she says, stay because you know who you are without them. Dash looks at her and understands the choice before him is not about love alone. It is about identity. And this time, there is no applause to guide him. Hailey Miller has carried weight longer than most people notice. Not the kind that bends the back, but the kind that settles into the bones and teaches you how to move carefully through the world. She learned early that strength is often quiet and that survival does not announce itself with applause. There were nights she slept in her clothes because morning came too fast. Nights when exhaustion pressed so hard on her chest, she wondered if she could breathe through it. She learned how to make one meal stretch into two, how to smile at teachers while calculating whether the lights would stay on, how to hold her son when he cried and still wake up steady enough to lead him through another day. No one clapped for that. She did not tell these stories often, not because she was ashamed, but because they were hers, earned, private. Pain shared too easily loses its power to shape you. She wore her past the way she wore everything else, with restraint, with dignity, with no need to perform resilience for anyone else's comfort. Dash begins to see it in the details, the way she folds laundry with care like each shirt is a promise kept, the way she listens fully when her son speaks, even when her body begs for rest. The way she checks, locks twice before bed and leaves the porch light on not out of fear, but habit. He watches her navigate the world with precision born of necessity. She does not assume safety. She creates it. She does not expect kindness. She prepares for indifference and still chooses grace. One evening, she lets the truth surface. Not dramatically, not all at once. It comes in pieces while they sit on opposite ends of the couch, the room lit by a single lamp. She speaks of the father who left quietly, of the silence that followed, of learning how to become both parents without losing herself, of moments when she cried in the bathroom because the walls could not repeat her fears. Dash does not interrupt. He does not reach for solutions. He sits and listens and feels something in him rearrange. He realizes how often he's been praised for endurance he never had to prove. How often people assumed his struggles were heavier because they were visible. Hailey carried everything without an audience and still showed up whole. "You do not need saving," he says quietly. She looks at him then, not surprised, relieved. Exactly. That is the moment Dash understands love is not about rescue. It is about presence, about staying when leaving would be easier, about choosing someone every day without asking the world to approve. He begins to see how often love has been framed to him as conquest or reward, how rarely it has been shown as commitment without spectacle. Hailey does not want to be lifted. She wants to be met. Presence means showing up when it is inconvenient, when people ask questions that make your chest tighten, when silence from old friends feels heavier than criticism from strangers. Presence means standing beside someone without needing to stand in front of them. Dash learns this slowly, in mornings that begin without headlines, in grocery store lines where no one recognizes him, in school events where Hailey stands tall and unapologetic, introducing him simply as someone she trusts. He feels the cost and the clarity of it. Hailey has never asked the world to understand her. She has only asked to be respected, and in choosing to love her, Dash learns that respect is not given in grand moments. It is given daily, quietly, even when no one is watching. Silence has always been kind to men like Dash Taylor. It smooths over mistakes. It protects legacies. It allows the world to forget inconvenient truths as long as the performance remains intact. Silence does not demand courage. It rewards restraint, and it arrives wrapped in polite conversations and carefully worded offers. The call comes on a Tuesday morning. His agent's voice is calm, practiced, almost gentle. "This does not have to become a thing. Step back. Let it cool down. Focus on basketball. People will move on, they always do. Distance is framed as maturity, denial as professionalism, a quiet end as wisdom." Dash sits in his kitchen staring at the counter while the words settle. He understands the language. He has lived inside it his entire career. Silence is how you keep what you have earned. Silence is how you avoid being punished for choosing wrong. But choosing silence now would mean choosing erasure. Hailey would disappear from the narrative like she never mattered, reduced to speculation and then forgotten, her presence rewritten as a distraction instead of a truth, her dignity buried beneath headlines that never asked who she was. Dash thinks of her standing in her kitchen, of her steady voice when she warned him what loving her would cost, of the way she refused to be a lesson or a phase, of the nights she carried everything alone without asking the world to notice. Silence would mean pretending none of that changed him. He goes to practice that afternoon and everything feels louder than usual. The squeak of sneakers, the slap of the ball against hardwood, the chants that rise automatically when he scores. The praise lands hollow now. Applause feels like a language he no longer trusts. After practice, a reporter catches him in the hallway. The question is casual, friendly. Are the rumors distracting you from the season? This is the moment. Dash feels the familiar instinct to deflect, to smile, to say no comment and keep walking. He has been trained for this, conditioned. Silence waits for him like a well-worn path. Instead, he stops. He thinks of Hailey's son looking at him with curiosity instead of awe. He thinks of the weight Hailey has carried without complaint. He thinks of who he was before he met her and who he has become since. "I am not distracted," he says slowly. "I am awake." The reporter blinks. Cameras shift. "I am in a relationship with someone who matters to me, someone who has taught me more about dignity and courage than anything I have learned on this court. I am proud of that, and I am not going to hide it to make other people comfortable." The hallway goes quiet. Dash's heart pounds. He does not know what will come next. He only knows this feels real. The backlash arrives quickly. Opinions sharpen, support fractures. Some fans cheer louder, others turn away. Sponsors hesitate. Old allies go silent. The world rearranges itself around his choice. That night, he goes to Hailey's place and knocks softly. When she opens the door and sees his face, she knows something has shifted. He tells her what he said, what he chose. She listens without interruption. "You did not have to do that," she says. "I did," he replies, "because silence would have meant pretending you did not change me. And you did." She studies him for a long moment. "This choice costs you." "I know." She steps aside and lets him in. For the first time, Dash understands that using his voice is not about being heard. It is about refusing to disappear the people who made you better. Silence would have been easier, but it would have erased the truth. And Dash Taylor is no longer willing to live quietly at the expense of what matters. The press conference room is colder than it needs to be. Bright lights flatten everything they touch. Logos repeat themselves across the backdrop like reminders of who pays for silence. Dash Taylor sits at the table alone, hands folded, suit immaculate, face calm in the way men learn to be calm when the stakes are high. This is familiar ground. He has answered questions like this his entire life, about injuries, about trades, about losses softened with the right words. He knows how to give answers that sound full without saying anything at all. Hailey stands at the edge of the room, just beyond the cluster of cameras and microphones. Not hidden, not highlighted. Watching the way she always watches, with care, with distance. With the knowledge that moments like this can fracture as easily as they form. She has learned not to lean forward too soon. The first question is predictable, about focus, about distractions, about whether personal choices are affecting performance. Dash listens without interrupting. He feels the familiar tug toward safety, the path where he says less and loses nothing. Instead, he inhales slowly and lifts his gaze. "I want to be clear," he says, voice steady. "I am not confused about who I am or who I love." The room shifts. Pens pause. Cameras adjust. "I am in a relationship with Hailey Miller. She is a mother. She is strong. She is honest. And she has changed how I see the world and myself. I will not minimize that to make this easier for anyone else." Hailey feels the words land before she feels anything else. Not because they are loud, because they are unprotected. There is no polish hiding behind them, no performance smoothing the edges. Dash continues. "I know what this costs me. I have been reminded of it constantly. But love that requires silence is not love I am willing to keep." A murmur ripples through the room. Some faces soften, others harden. This is not the kind of honesty people can easily categorize. He does not defend her. He does not explain her worth. He refuses to turn her into an argument. He simply names her and stands still. That is what makes it different. Hailey watches him sit there without armor. No deflection, no joke, no escape hatch. She feels the weight of it in her chest because she knows what it takes for a man like him to do this. She also knows how often moments like this collapse once the noise returns. She does not clap. She does not smile. She waits. The questions sharpen. Are you prepared for the backlash? Do you worry about endorsements? Is this a statement or a phase? Dash answers without heat, without apology, without performance. This is my life, not a message, not a distraction, and I am prepared to live it honestly. When the conference ends, the room breaks into motion. Reporters scatter, conversations ignite. Dash stands and steps away from the table, suddenly just a man again. Hailey meets him in the hallway. The space between them feels charged and fragile. She searches his face for cracks, for signs of regret, for the familiar withdrawal that follows bravery once the cameras are gone. You stood there, she says quietly. I stood there. You did not look for approval. I was looking for you. Something in her chest loosens. Not fully. Not yet. But enough to let hope breathe. This time the risk was not hers alone. This time he did not ask her to be brave for both of them. And that is what makes her stay. The noise does not disappear all at once. It fades unevenly, like a crowd slowly finding its exits. Some fans turn away with disappointment sharpened into judgment. Others remain quieter now, watching with new eyes. Endorsements shift. Invitations thin out. The world recalibrates its interest in Dash Taylor. What remains is smaller and heavier and truer. Dash learns quickly that love without applause feels different in the body. There is no rush of adrenaline, no roar to lift you when doubt creeps in. There are mornings instead, soft ones, light filtering through curtains, the sound of a kettle boiling while someone moves around the kitchen barefoot. He learns Hailey's rhythms, the way she wakes before the alarm, the way she checks her phone only after breakfast because mornings belong to her son, the way she hums without realizing it when she is focused. These moments are unremarkable to the outside world and monumental to him. This is where he learns how to stay. Hailey does not rush trust. She has built her life on consistency, not promises. She watches how Dash shows up when no one is watching, how he keeps his word about small things, how he listens without trying to fix, how he steps back when she needs space and steps forward when she needs support. She pays attention to what he does after the headlines move on. He attends school meetings without cameras. He learns the names of teachers and classmates. He sits through long evenings of homework and short tempers without needing credit. He understands that being present is not a gesture, but a practice. Dash learns what it means to love alongside parenting rather than around it, to fit himself into a life that already exists, to accept that he is not the center of this story and never needs to be. There is humility in that. Relief, too. They cook together in a kitchen that is too small for two people and somehow just right. They argue softly about groceries and bedtime routines. They laugh at things that would never make a highlight reel. The quiet becomes a language they both speak fluently. Hailey begins to relax into the steadiness, not all at once, not without hesitation, but she lets herself lean a little more each day. She allows Dash into the ordinary corners of her life where trust is earned through repetition. She lets him see her tired, lets him see her frustrated, lets him see her human. He does not flinch. There are moments when the absence of applause still echoes, when Dash misses the certainty of being celebrated, when Hailey wonders if this calm is temporary. They name those fears instead of burying them. They speak plainly. They choose honesty even when it is uncomfortable. This is the work. They learn that love does not need an audience to be real. It needs intention, patience, the willingness to be known without being admired. One evening, they sit on the floor while Hailey's son builds something complicated out of pieces that do not quite fit. Dash helps without taking over. Hailey watches from across the room, heart steady in a way it has not been in years. This is not a performance. This is not a statement. This is a life. And in the quiet that follows the noise, they discover something rare. Love that does not ask to be clapped for lasts longer. The arena fills the way it always does, with light and sound and expectation pressing in from every direction. The banners hang high, the court gleams, the crowd hums with that familiar hunger for spectacle. Dash Taylor steps onto the hardwood and feels the noise rise to meet him, automatic and powerful. But this time, he does not lift his hands. He does not search for the cameras or the screens or the faces that once defined him. Instead, his eyes move upward, past the luxury boxes, past the rows where wealth and access sit comfortably. He scans the place where the lights soften and the steps grow steep. The cheap seats, he finds them quickly. Hailey Miller sits exactly where she always has, her son beside her, his legs swinging with restless excitement. She wears a simple jacket, her hair pulled back, her posture steady. There is pride in her eyes, not the loud kind meant to be seen, but the quiet kind that settles deep and stays. Their eyes meet. No shock this time, no question, just recognition. Dash feels his chest tighten with something like gratitude. This seat, this woman, this life that once brushed past him unnoticed has reshaped everything. He remembers the first night he saw her up there, laughing without asking permission, loving without performance. He remembers how small and loud the world felt then. Now it feels clear. The game unfolds beneath him. The ball moves. The crowd reacts. He plays well, focused and present, but something has shifted at the center of it all. The applause is background noise. The real weight lives elsewhere. During a timeout, Dash looks up again. Hailey's son is standing now, shouting encouragement that has nothing to do with stats or legacy. Hailey laughs and pulls him close, her hand resting easily on his shoulder. She notices Dash watching and nods once, a gesture filled with trust earned slowly. That nod means more than any standing ovation. Dash understands now that love did not arrive to elevate him. It arrived to ground him, to remind him that worth is not measured by noise or approval or numbers on a scoreboard. Worth is built in quiet choices and daily presence and the courage to be seen as you are. When the final buzzer sounds, the arena erupts. Teammates rush him. The screens flash his name. Somewhere, people chant again. Dash smiles, but it is softer now. Freer. As he walks off the court, he does not look back at the crowd. He looks up one last time to the cheap seats where Hailey and her son stand together. She presses her hand to her heart, not dramatic, just real. He returns the gesture without thinking. Later, after the lights dim and the noise thins, they meet outside the arena. No rush, no spectacle, just three people stepping into the night air. Hailey's son chatters about the game, his joy spilling out in every direction. Dash listens like this is the most important commentary he will ever hear. Hailey walks beside him, close enough to matter, independent enough to remain herself. Their hands brush, then intertwine naturally, without checking who might be watching. This is the seat that changed everything. Not the place of honor, not the center of attention. The place where truth sat quietly and waited to be chosen. And Dash knows now that love does not need a spotlight. It only needs the courage to look up and see what was there all along. Before you go, take this with you. Every voice dismissed today is a force awakening tomorrow. Every moment of doubt is shaping something stronger. If this story moved you, pass it on. Be the reminder. Be the strength. Share this video and help someone else believe in their rise. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, Give it a like, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe to Black Stories Untold for more stories that uncover hidden struggles, celebrate strength, and remind us that every voice matters.